And we're doing a walk through Tahmoor, and it's courtesy of the Frank Baker Collection, Picton Historical Society, Marlane Fairfax, which is me, and the narration is shared by Frank and myself, and it's from the research of both Frank and myself. So Frank, again, can I just kick off with how you came to start your wonderful collection of photos?
Well, it started off by me receiving a photograph, a class photograph, around about of 1956 from William Robinson, a local boy who I think was nearly born here. And it started off that I started looking into see if the school had any more photographs. And I went down to the school, and sadly there was hardly any black and whites at all. So it was out of that actually kicked me off and started looking into more class photos. And as I went on, I was picking up other photos of old Tahmoor as it was, which I knew about because I came here in 1954 as a 10-year-old, and it started off from there.
Brilliant. Well, your collection has certainly added a lot to the history of Tahmoor and even the broader district. So we're going to do our walk today. We're going to start from Myrtle Creek Bridge and work our way southwards. And this bridge, Frank, you'd remember this particular bridge. This one was built in the 1890s.
I went over there many times on my way to high school, the Picton Central School from Tahmoor.
Yeah. All right. Now we know that from newspaper accounts that there was a bridge there from 1831. The governor of the day got stuck on it apparently at one point in time. But this bridge continued on until 1965. So the one you're looking at is the 1890s bridge. And then this one is the building of the 1965 bridge. And you can see that really sharp bend coming around onto the bridge. And there was, whoops, sorry, go back again. And there were a lot of accidents and certainly fatalities on that bridge over time. Then we're moving up, and then just up from the bridge in the 1930s and 40s and probably 50s, even maybe 60s. Do you think, Frank?
Yes, yes.
Was the Van Dragt picnic ground
on the right-hand side, Marlane?
Right, exactly. Yep. And she had about 10 blocks of ground there, and she came from Douglas Park. And actually, Joanna Van Dragt, she was a widow with 5 children when she came to Tahmoor, and she came from Douglas Park. And I found out since that her and her husband came out from San Francisco.
Right.
They were both born in Holland, but they married in America, had 3 children there. Leonard, or Leonardus, I think it was named, came out in the March 1923, and Joanna followed him with 3 of the kids, and arriving, I think it was on Christmas Day 1923, which would have been a nice Christmas present. But unfortunately, tragically, he was killed in a motorbike accident in 1928, and it was after that that Joanna came to Tahmoor and set up this picnic ground where they sold hot water for 6pence, and they had little huts where people could go and have their picnic lunch or their cups of tea and all that sort of thing. The photo on the right is the family, Joanna with 3 of the girls, and also a fellow called, he was known as Pop McClellan. His name was Alex McClellan, and he'd come from Douglas Park as well, so he was known to the family for a long time, and obviously assisted them on the ground and etc., etc. But you can see from the signs there, they sold cigarettes, lollies, and hot water. So it was quite a busy venture, I'd imagine.
Yes, it was good. It was a good place to stop over if you're travelling, from Sydney to Melbourne-ish way.
Yeah. There'd probably be a lot of those sort of stops, I guess, along the way, wouldn't there, from those times?
Yes, yes, yes.
Frank, then we've got Moore's Dairy. Was that on the left or the right-hand side?
That was on opposite Van Dragt's on the left-hand side now.
Right. Now, how many cows do you think they would have milked?
That's a good question now. Maybe about 10, I would think. I'm guessing here. But he had to milk by hand, of course. That was Creamy, as we used to call him, Keith Moore.
Right. And he would have supplied a good number of the locals with milk then.
He probably would have supplied all of the locals who didn't have cows themselves.
Yeah. Well, did your family? No, you were down in Rockford Road initially, weren't you?
Yes, but we still receive milk from him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So they travelled around Tahmoor a bit.
Yeah. And there's the family. So you've got Jackie and then Keith, who was known as Creamy, and an unknown relative, and then Keith's wife, Mona, and then the other photos of the horse and cart. So we delivered them in that horse and cart.
Yeah. Well, actually, that photo of the four of them, the first girl, and whether I've done that wrong, and I could have, but that's actually Grace.
Oh, okay.
That's Grace, the third child, the third girl, and then Creamy, and then Keith, that's Keith, and then a relative of the family, and then Mona, who's still alive at QV at 105.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it?
It is absolutely wonderful.
All right, so because I'll change that. Who were the other family members, Frank?
Oh, there's Jacqueline, Anne, Jimmy, who was killed on the bridge there at Myrtle Creek.
He was only a young fellow.
Yeah, and then Grace, and then Billy. That was the five of them.
Right. And Anne, is it Anne? Did she recently pass away?
Yes, she did, sadly, yes.
Okay. All right, then we come to Tahmoor House, built from at least there was something there in 1825, but certainly from 1835 I know that there was a good description of the property. Built as an inn, operated as an inn until 1866 or thereabouts.
Right.
It closed because of the railway coming through. It was on the Great Stouts Road, but the railway went by Thirmere and Buxton, so no traffic on the road, like a freeway going through, I guess, and so it closed. But we're going to do a separate thing on the old houses, but just I found very interesting. I'm doing a little bit of research. John Sanderson, he ran it as a guest house or tea house and boarding house from 1920 to about the 1940s. And when I looked into him, he'd actually served in the British Navy for 6 years. He was born in Scotland and then came out here in about, I think, about 1897. And he landed in Victoria, but then very interestingly, he then moved to Western Australia and he enlisted in the 6th Western Australian Mounted Rifles. And he served in South Africa in the Boer War. He came back from that, back to Victoria, and then he enlisted in the First World War. And what I found extremely interesting on his attestation papers is that he described himself as a male nurse. He was put in with the ambulance corps. He went overseas. He was only there for 6 months and they sent him home because he had heart problems. So I found that, really interesting. You don't sort of know the story behind the name. Ironmonge, been refurbished recently in recent times. It's very hard to see though from the road these days. Commenced life as Kurrajar and it was built in 1887. And the beautiful flowers, the garden in these photos, Frank's photos, were from Mr. and Mrs. Walton, I think, Frank.
Yes, which was Joyce Baker's mum and dad,
right?
Who had the farm just south of this building.
So, well, when you say farm, what did they have on the farm? Did they have cows?
Well, the Bakers would have had a couple of cows, but it was a poultry farm.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, that comes up next.
I get confused between the Bakers, and you say Baker, I get confused between you and the other ones.
No Rellies.
No Rellies. Okay,
all
right. So Mr. and Mrs. Walton owned this, and their son-in-law and daughter,
yes,
Joyce Baker, and her husband, they ran a poultry farm.
Yeah,
Ron, that's it. Right, okay. All right. So that's where you're looking across. Is it to the?
Yes, to Walton's house. Yes, through the old abattoirs.
Yeah. So these abattoirs belong to, was it Richard?
Ray Whitfield?
Ray Whitfield, sorry.
Yes.
And that photo on the right, the black and white, you can see skins, it looks like. Is it hides hanging on?
Yes, they're hides drying out, yes.
Mm. So would he have sold those on as well, do you think?
Oh, yes, they would have been sent somewhere for them to make bags or whatever, handbags or whatever they made out of them.
Mm.
Yeah, but they're cow's hides.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So next door to his little slaughter yard there was his butcher shop.
Yes.
And you can just make out butcher, can't you, on that side
Yes.
wall there?
Yes. Yes, I went in there many, many times.
Brought you.
Well, the man the reason why we come up to Tahmoor was John Shirtliff, who lived in the house that he bought from Ray Whitfield and Lily, and that was the butcher shop next door, and he was John Shirtliff was the deliverer of the meat. So the meat was cut up and packed, and he would deliver it in his little red truck. And as a 10-year-old, even an 8-year-old, the Baker family boy, or two of us, my brother James, we would go out with we called Uncle John and deliver the meat all around Tahmoor, which was terrific.
And there's another photo, and that's
the house. That's the Whitfield house that was built with the butcheries and the slaughterhouse over the creek,
right
behind.
Okay, so it's over the creek behind that, yeah.
Yes, yes.
So both the house and the little shop were built at the same time.
Well, I'm not exactly sure, but probably round about that.
And that's now long gone, that little shop.
Yes, yeah. That the shop actually went probably in the 2000s.
Yeah. Next, and we have a lot of there were a lot of corner shops and milk bars, and which sold groceries as well as every other thing you probably wanted.
Yeah.
Along the old highway. And this was the first one, I guess, as you come into Tahmoor heading south. And when do you think this one was built?
We're not too sure when it was actually built, but we're told here that it was operated from 1918 to the 70s.
Right. And the people that were in that shop, we knew there was a number of people that were in there. This one here, the photo we've got here is actually of Glenn Dunk, and Glenn was a retired butcher from Camden. He came over and he took over the shop and also operated real estate agents.
Correct.
There, and family is still Bob Dunk, Bob and Jenny Dunk. Bob Dunk's the son of Glenn. They still live in Tahmoor.
Yes.
Okay, the Baptist Church here. They when did they start services in Tahmoor?
In Tahmoor was about, we believe, in about 1946 in a private home in Larkin Street. And later services were held in the CWA Hall, and the Tahmoor Baptist Church was formed in 1948, and the first church was built in 52. Yeah, and that was, the land was granted by a Mrs. Emmett, who was the sister-in-law to Sam Emmett, Mr. Tahmoor, as I call him.
Yeah. Okay, and so that photo on the left there, that part of the church is actually that first little church built in 1952, is that right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, and that's it on the right.
Yeah, and they've added that little bit there.
Yes.
Then they've built, and then the current church, when was it built?
It was built about 1978, 79.